So since we do have a limited amount of time today, I just wanted to plant a few ideas in everybody's mind so you can think about this leading up to our additional sessions. We have a regularly scheduled live coding session tomorrow. And then, I'll just do an informal one on Friday. If people can make it, we'll have a good conversation. If there's limited attendance, that's okay too. And, I hope everybody here, everybody on this call right now has been pretty engaged with the course, and thank you for that. And just to be really clear, right, we called this a 10-week cohort. There were some delays that were a bit out of our control, but whether those delays happened or not, the purpose of this course really is to help people onboard to the point where they can contribute to something. And the vision is for that contribution stage to last for as long as you want it to, right? If people here are looking to build up their portfolio of work by contributing to real projects, I hope that what we do gives you the opportunity to do that over the next few months. And then when you fall in love with another project and you start working on that full time and you don't need PPBL anymore, that's okay too, right? This is an open invitation to stick around and to collaborate for as long as makes sense to you. And so with that in mind, we have these two course projects. One is the Gimbal Bounty Treasury and Escrow, and another is the course completion token that people receive when they finish this course. And at the highest level, my question this week is, what's the relationship between the course completion token and the ability to contribute to bounties that are posted in a GBTE? And so let's give this, whoops, I just need to do this. Here's a little preview. We'll go deeper into this tomorrow, but live on GitLab is this kind of working draft of a GBTE front end. And I'll have this live, a test net or a pre-prod deployment of this available for people to start playing with tomorrow. But just to give you a little look, we've got some ugly bounty cards right here. The first bounty right here is to create a style for this bounty card, much like the mastery level 302 assignments. So where you had to create a passive component and a transaction component. This is very similar to that. And the idea is for us to be able to instantiate GBTE for anybody who wants to use it. And then imagine, like on a platform like WordPress, where there's different components, you could choose to use, James's ugly bounty card right here, or someone else's much more attractive one, right? That's the idea. And you'll be able to just slot in, and maybe you'll have a handful of them to choose from. So there's a couple of bounties like that, just to give people a chance to practice with the front end skills and to earn gimbals and ADA for doing so. And then there's much more advanced stuff, like rewriting the treasury contract to handle multi-sig, or to build self-minting, or the list goes on. Or maybe you want to focus on documentation and creating a written guide about setting up an instance, or a video guide. There's a bunch of different sorts of tasks that we will be posting here. So yeah, let me pause for questions here. Alex, go ahead.
Can you make my token work, or should I really get a new one? I would prefer to keep the old one if it's possible.
Very good. Okay, so that's then the question, right? When I go to commit to some bounty and I connect my wallet, I can see what contributor tokens I hold. Now, what's a contributor token? It's a token with the policy ID that's specified when we compile the contracts for this DAP. And so I think, let me think about using the old policy ID. I think we probably want to not use that one from the earliest instance, but the decision we have to make together is, hey, the course completion token people get with its policy ID, should that be the contributor token? Or should completing the course be one thing and you get a token to signify that? And then there's contribution tokens that are distinct from those. That's something we got to decide on. And depending on what we decide, then we can say, okay, well, if they're the same thing, good. How much of the course do you have to complete and by when? And if they're different, how do I get a contributor token? So that's for us to be looking at this week. And I'll reiterate that again in just a moment. Hey, what are you thinking?
Hey, man. Yeah,
Hey.
just a quick one. I suppose it's kind of trotting old ground a little bit here. But just to clarify, actually, initially I was going to ask you if you could sort of drill down and go into the details. So I'm glad that you opened this card. Yeah. So my question is with regards to completion, right? Obviously, at the bottom there it says the issuer is one who, at the end of the day, gets to decide whether the person has met the requirements for the bounty or not. Yeah, I'm just curious if you could sort of expand on what you mean by automatically populate approval process under the complete section.
Good. Okay. This is just a lingering note to self. As you can see here, like the details, I've got some headings up here, but my work between now and tomorrow is to make sure that these bounties actually have these fields on them. Approval process is definitely something that I'm eager for us to talk about together. So thank you for noticing that. What you'll see if I go back to the bounty list, first of all, is that there's 4 different numbers on approval process. It could be a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4, a 3 or a 4. And if I jump into this card with approval process number 4, you'll see it's a different approval process. And all I've done so far is create an initial suggestion for this. Let me skip over to actually the code for just a moment. Open up. Okay. So this is my first attempt at writing a few possible approval processes. And I would love feedback on these. So in my mind, suppose there's 4 levels. The lowest level, the most centralized way of doing it is just, hey, the issuer decides. If that bounty is completed, then distributes it. I'm actually not even using this one right now, but I feel like allowing for that basic case is probably important. You know, there might be like little tasks where it's just like, yeah, you did that or you didn't, or maybe it's something in Canvas, right? And it's just a matter of the owner of the treasury saying, all right, that's done, distribute that bounty. An example of something like this that I haven't posted yet would be time stamping a live coding session, right? It's not a highly technical task. It wouldn't be a bounty that pays an awful lot, but it's a chance for somebody to start contributing and get a few contributions under their belt. And if people were going to be watching those live coding sessions anyway, you could earn a couple of tokens for sharing timestamps with me. I get those timestamps, I throw those on YouTube and done, distribute that bounty. Okay. Number two is the same as number one, except it's a Git contribution, right? So it's still the issuer deciding, okay, that bounty is complete, but at least there's the evidence of a successful merge request on GitLab that we can point to that says, okay, that work got done. Levels 3 and 4 are much more interesting to me. Okay, so 3 and 4 have to do with group approval. And I'm imagining two scenarios. Number 3 would be you have to share your results with a certain number of people, and some percentage of them, maybe all of them, have to sign off as saying, okay, yeah, you did that bounty. So an example of this would be something like writing documentation. Okay, write documentation about X, share that documentation with N people, and then get some of the, maybe it's 2 or 3 people, right? Get 2 people to say, all right, yeah, you created that documentation. And hopefully you recognize that this is a stepping stone towards multi-sig, right? This is kind of the operational part. This is, the rails for multi-sig. Even before we implement multi-sig in Plutus, we can start doing this informally. And then finally, number 4, same thing as number 3, but give a live presentation, either in Playground or at live coding about the thing that you built, and everybody who's there can decide to approve it or not. Again, this is my first attempt at setting this up, and I would love to see, I would love to know what you think works about a plan like this and what might need to change about it. Yes, I see Alex and Curtis.
I love it.
Thanks, man. Alex, what do you think?
With minor tweaks, your number 3 and 4 is actually cost $400,000. Because it's what the guys were, the proposal that I was talking about. And the tweaks are that I think group approval, you don't have 1 vote for 1 person, you vote your reputation tokens. And if you lose, so you risk your reputation tokens. So they have 2 protocols, one soft and hard. In soft protocol, you kind of stake your tokens, and if you lose, they come back to your wallet. And in the hard protocol, if you lose, your tokens are burned. Well, and number 4 is similar to, but they didn't think about that. And but it's similar,
And it's fun thinking about how if we build these systems, they might be extremely valuable. And so this is GBTE, right? Like I'm going to keep working on this thing, and the invitation is open if people want to contribute and become experts on using it as well. That's the invitation right here. And I fully believe, I'm betting my time on this. I believe that we'll be able to make sustainable income by helping people to implement something like this if we get it to that point. Curtis, what do you think?
So I agree with Alex that number 3 and number 4, the list of N, they need to be credible and accountable people. So whether they have been previous contributors or they're somehow at an extra level, right, within the community, because if everybody approves, then you can get, sorry, what is that term? Still trying to wake up, sorry. Basically the 50% attack. So if the N is full of people that, have special interest, then they could approve a particular bounty and overwhelm the system with like positive votes or something when maybe they didn't do the work properly. Or I just feel like that can be taken advantage of if anybody is allowed to be in the list of N on number 3 and 4. And then additionally, I do feel like number 1, 2, and 3, and 4 are, it's the step of awarding, right, the committer that value. It doesn't unfortunately address the requirements and the definition of the requirements. So I can see certain situations turning into where we need lock services, to mediate this. If the contributor believes that they completed the work, but the issuer says, no, it's not, then there wasn't well-defined requirements. So creating a standard for those requirements, I almost feel like are necessary. A snap Brillia, that's sort of what we have to do. You have to alleviate the need for a mediator or somebody else to get involved, including snap Brillia, they have to have well-defined requirements, and how do you complete those requirements so they can't necessarily be disputed subjectively.
Excellent.
So yeah, I think you're addressing the issuing of it and how it can be automated. Then there's the other step of how to standardize or get well-defined requirements so that nobody can kind of dispute that.
That's right. Excellent. Excellent. That's exactly right. And so there's an element of forcing these issues here, right? By spinning this up, we build the ability to get these systems right. And this, Curtis, to your point, this is also why it's important to recognize who can get a contributor token and how. I'm looking at everybody in this room right now, right? Anybody here, I have enough trust with all of you to know that we would talk, right? To be like, okay, if anybody here has a contributor token, commits to one of these things, we're not strangers who are going to end up, with quite that level of confusion, if that makes sense. But we have to imagine a future where strangers will be taking on bounties. And then, for me, what distinguishes this from Snap Brillia is we're building something that anybody can take and create their own instance. And potentially, when people do create their own instance, they'll choose from a menu of approval strategies. I could imagine somebody wanting to create an instance of GBTE where there's only one approval process, right? Just make a list of one. Yeah, I just want to run this thing, depending on the stakes. And so we have to not only figure this out for ourselves, but also document the best practices for minimizing conflict and making sure that there is that sort of clarity. And so bounties as written should make enough sense, and we should coach people to only commit to a bounty if you've covered your clarifying questions about it. Maybe we need a system for people to ask clarifying questions about the bounty. Hey, I read that bounty there, and I think I want to do it, but could you give more clarity on this bit or that bit first? And if there's like even a feedback process for writing the bounty in the first place, hey, there's another place that we might end up. But yeah, Curtis, this is hopefully everything you're saying fits elegantly onto the roadmap of things we get to learn about and further document. I see A and Trevor. What you got?
Trevor, do you want to go first? I'll go after you.
I can, sure. Appreciate it. I was just gonna chime in to say I did drop for a second there. My internet was a little wonky, but based on what Curtis was saying, like that's definitely logistically like a major issue. My background is actually as a consulting engineer, and so there's a lot of when it comes to scope of a project, scope creep, who approves it, especially when you're doing like independent consulting. That's like a common problem to solve, and that's why services like Upwork or even Fiverr exist, is to have a centralized system for that. But obviously with something like this on the blockchain, like you want it to be something that people can set up themselves, and has, you know, for a lot of people, they desire some level of decentralization. So just to echo that, that is like a huge problem to solve, but one that I think, I mean, definitely even just your write up here is awesome. It's cool to see that kind of stuff coming alive, and some ideas being thrown out there. And I think that depending on how we're able to structure this, especially when it comes to multi-sig, I think that a great system for this can involve kind of an arbitrary, someone who's uninvolved with that particular posting being able to approve in the case of a dispute, based off of only the information being the work completed and the posting that was agreed to. But all that said, I'm still pretty new to the GBTE, and I wanted to ask a quick question at the end of that, just feedback and echoing of what Curtis said being important. Is this later on in the course where I can start to kind of dig into exactly how this works and what this is? Is there somewhere else that I should go to kind of catch up to speed?
Module number 401 has an earlier iteration of GBTE that kind of shows the main ideas. And my intention today was to kind of give that overview, but we're going to delay that till tomorrow because C4C is coming up. Yeah.
No worries. This is super cool. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks. Yeah, and it's really exciting to me to see these are the non-technical ideas that we also have to think about. There's so much more to building these new forms of dApps than just writing the code. And so anybody, if you're getting excited about those systems design questions, this is what we're here for, right? This ought to give us a venue for surfacing those best practices. And I know that Nelson started a Miro board, starting to sketch out some thoughts about, you know, a bounty creation process. What is that approval process? So if you haven't seen that link, maybe Nelson, you can repost that in PPBL just so it's fresh.
Oh, thanks, James. I didn't actually realize there was a mirror board out there. I'd love to dig into
Yeah.
it. And thanks, Nelson.
Awesome. All right, hey, last words. We got a minute till C4C.
No pressure, eh?
Hey.
Okay, so the reason why I said I love it is because this is not our first rodeo, right? We within the Gimbal community have actually been having these conversations for quite a while, and you know, it's a very good point that Trevor and Curtis bring up. However, like we've previously had these conversations, and I feel like the reason, again, going back to what I said I love it, is because this is a pragmatic approach to it, which in a way takes the idea which I believe in and sort of gradually implementing, which is job to be done, right? There's this theory. I won't get into too much detail, but just if you type into a search engine job to be done, it's this theory of basically, in a way, defining your North Star and then allowing for the path to that place to be set by whoever, you know, will come along and have the best, you know, most path of, you know, energy efficient path, or path of least resistance to that place. So the way I'm approaching bounties is not in being too bogged down in sort of centralizing and defining, you know, particulars. Yes, I'll have some preferences, like I'll like it, say, you know, I like people to use Swift, I'll like people to or whoever is answering a bounty to opt for decentralized infrastructure services, right? These are just sort of simple things, right? I'm not like micromanaging, right? And then saying, okay, if you arrive at a thing that can solve, you know, can do this, I'm paying you. I don't mind taking the hit, but, you know, I'm gonna, even if it's not all that well done, because, you know, I can, you know, revise the thing and, you know, do it, you know, have someone else, you know, try another thing. But anyway, yeah, definitely needs more time. Definitely needs more time. But I just quickly want to share that, and yeah, super excited about the pragmatic approach and looking forward to contributing.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, a lot more to come on this. And I'm glad we had just a little bit of time today just to plant some seeds of ideas. And I didn't plan on talking about approval process today, but I'm really glad we did. I'm really excited about this part. And I think it lays rails for some really interesting technical work. So we'll pick it up here tomorrow at the regular time. We'll go through the different data elements that are used in a bounty. And then we'll set the stage for this question about, okay, well, how do I get one of these contributor tokens? So more to come. Thanks everybody for this time today, and hope to see you at C4C if you can make it.
See you.
Thank you. Yes.
Bye, guys.
All right. See you soon, everybody. Thanks.
See you.